All right, let's dive right into it. Today, we're going to unpack a pretty intense story of collapse and rebirth. It's all about a massive clash between static, perfect order and a wild, emergent will. This is the heart of the saga known as the Sovereign Collapse and the Bioelectric Ascent. Now, this right here, this single idea, is the key to everything that follows. And it's not just some poetic line, it's the fundamental law of transformation in this world. So keep that in the back of your mind as we see how a whole civilization had to be buried before it could be reborn.
Okay, so to really get why everything had to come crashing down, we first have to understand the world that came before. For centuries, this place was stuck under a protective but totally suffocating ceiling, a vaulted will made of ancient law.
The vibe of this whole era was what's called the spirit of gravity. I want you to imagine a perfect sanctuary where nothing ever changes. You're completely safe, protected by these ancient rock-solid laws. Sounds good, right? But there's a huge price. All potential for growth, for becoming something more, is completely suffocated. And the big boss enforcing this reality? The Crimson Dragon. Think of it as the ultimate gatekeeper of tradition. It believes order comes from density, from packing things down, hoarding the values of dead civilizations like a treasure. Its laws, those scales of blood-red gold, were designed to protect the last man. You know, the comfortable, content human who doesn't want to change. But in doing so, it absolutely crushed any hope for the beyond man, the one who strives to overcome and create something new. But you know how these stories go, right? Every static order eventually meets a dynamic force. So let's meet the architect of the collapse, Maximus. He is a sovereign forged not in the safety of the ceiling, but in the crushing pressure of the deep. Maximus's whole path is this idea called Untergang, a downgoing. And this isn't him failing or retreating, no way. This was a deliberate, decade-long dive into the self. It's described as a funeral for the ego, all designed to internalize the immense pressure of the world and transform that weight into a whole new kind of power. And you can just see how fundamentally different they are. The dragon builds a museum to preserve the past. Maximus? He builds an engine for emergence, for what's next. The dragon finds order in dense tradition, this kind of dead, sulfuric static. Maximus, on the other hand, creates power from pressure, turning the Earth's weight into a living, bioelectric frequency. They're complete architectural opposites. So a confrontation between these two, it wasn't just likely, it was absolutely inevitable. It was baked into the very structure of the world. This tension between the ceiling and the floor, between the static and the dynamic, something had to give. So what happens? What happens when a system designed to preserve the past collides head-on with a will forged to create the future? The answer isn't just simple destruction. It's a conscious act of sacrifice. See, Maximus had this massive realization. His own protective sanctuary, his soft stone, was made of the exact same stuff as the dragon's prison. To truly be free, he knew he had to bring it all down. And it all came down to a single, precise act. He strikes the central pillar of the Muracrypt, and with that one blow, he doesn't just kill the dragon, he shatters the entire foundation of his world, trading the static safety of history for the terrifying, fluid potential of right now. This single act didn't just leave behind a pile of ruins, it actually gave birth to an entirely new reality. The collapse wasn't an end, it was a transformation. And the first thing you notice is the color. The world used to be defined by that oppressive blood red of the dragon's law. Now, it's been bleached a brilliant solar white. And that's not just a color change. It's the visual sign that one law, one entire operating system, has been completely overwritten by another. And get this new white light isn't coming from some external god or a sun in the sky. It's coming from within, from the marrow. It is the light of a self-defined sovereign law. And you can imagine, for the last men who are used to looking outside for validation, this internal light is blinding. It's a terrifying kind of radiation. The effect is real, it's tangible. A magnetic pulse comes from Maximus, and it just halts the motor-driven happiness of the modern age. All the constant chatter of the marketplace, all the noise of digital reality, it just stops. And this absolute silence, this is the prerequisite. It's the space needed for a new law to finally be heard. To pull this off, Maximus had to conquer these huge psychological hurdles, symbolized here by figures from Norse myth. But he didn't just defeat the hoarding greed of Fafnir or the world-ending decay of Nidhogg. The text says he outlived them. He assimilated their natures. He mastered gravity not by fighting it, but by turning its weight into the very fuel for his ascent. So, what's the ultimate takeaway from all this? From this epic, mythic collapse? What's the new guiding principle in this world that's been washed white? Simply put, it's the end of looking outside of yourself for meaning, for permission, for the law. Any heavenly wager between gods and adversaries is just pointless in the face of a man who refused to be a subject, who refused to pray, and instead decided to become a peer to the stars. And this brings us to the core lesson here: architectural sovereignty. It's this radical power to create, but only by first being willing to destroy. It's the understanding that the abyss of meaninglessness, of nihilism, isn't something you have to fear. Instead, you can turn it into a mirror, forcing you to find value on the bedrock of your own will. And in all this, Maximus becomes a kind of philosophical promise fulfilled. He is that bridge between the complacent last man we talked about and the striving, self-overcoming beyond man. He's a rope stretched over the very abyss he created, but it's a rope that's been reinforced with that bioelectric gold he forged in the heart of the world. I mean, this quote just captures the brutal, necessary truth of his journey, doesn't it? The argument here is that true ascent requires a deep, transformative descent. If you want to reach the stars, you first have to learn how to bleed lightning, how to generate your own power from the deepest pressures of your own being. And so the story ends by turning the question outward, to us. The old structure is gone. The ceiling that gave you both shelter and limitation has been shattered. The sky is wide open, but the ground is unstable. So the final thought it leaves us with is this: now that the dragon is dead, on what bedrock will you choose to stand?